It was like a light switch. As soon as I saw what was going on, I just said, I'm done. It wasn't a medical reason. It wasn't a religious reason. It just was.
So you don't have moments where you miss eating meat?
I mean, there are times when something comes on the table, it smells so good, and then...
Daniel's not a vegetarian.
No, he's not.
Okay, all right, so how does that work at home?
You have to be that steak and potato type of guy to be a man.
To be a man. You're not a man unless you eat meat.
Which is not the case. There's like so many amazing, famous athletes who are vegan, and they're just as strong. They're winning medals. Their performance doesn't lack anything because they didn't have a glass of milk or, eat that big juicy steak.
Do you think you would ever, in your journey, become a vegan? Hey guys, welcome to Kindness with Amy. Today I'm joined by the beautiful Sunny Leone, who is an actor, an influencer, an entrepreneur, a mother, and everything in between. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. How do you do it all, Sunny?
I don't know. I have no choice.
You have no choice.
There's no option but to do it. But, when someone says all these things out loud is when you're like, oh, yeah, I do all those things. But, when you're in it, you don't really think about it. It's just something you need to do, and that's it.
Yeah. So, Sunny, I know that you are an avid animal lover. We actually did a food giveaway during COVID, and you were so generous. You came, you helped to prepare the biryani, which we gave to the needy during difficult times. And I learned about your love for animals during that time. And I know that you are...
We did. We saved a couple animals that day,
didn't
didn't
we?
We
saved those
I
dogs.
totally forgot.
They were the cutest dogs
they were
I've ever seen.
Cute.
Oh my God. And I
cute.
know one went to your, was it makeup artist or stylist?
Maybe.
He took one. There were three. And
so
I think
anybody who's
one.
around me who doesn't have a dog, I'm like, you're going to have a dog. And this is your dog.
So I think two came, I took two, and that was Brownie and this other one.
Yeah.
And then we ended up finding them home. So
they were adorable. And they were just this teeny tiny thing.
They were so fluffy. I actually have a picture I'm going to show you. And they have blue eyes. Oh my God. It was too much. So I learned about your love for animals when we met, and I know that you are a vegetarian and you gave up meat about 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Wow. So I wanted to know, Sunny, why did you give up eating meat?
So there's this foundation in Los Angeles that myself and my husband were a part of.
Right.
And it was called Animal Hope and Wellness. And what they do is they save dogs and animals from the Yulin meat market.
Wow.
And when, it's one thing when you are watching what they do to the animals, like burning them alive, chopping their feet off, killing them, torturing them, and torturing them in the most horrendous ways because of their belief system. And then it's another when those dogs come home. Yeah. And they get off the plane. And they're covered in their own feces. Wow. And they have all sorts of these, crazy skin diseases, or they have medical issues. They have so much going on with them. And then I'm on the ground washing them, cleaning them, and, giving them medicine and walking them. So we were really, really involved with this foundation. And it was like a light switch. As soon as I saw what was going on, and I became very aware of what goes on in different parts of the world to animals, I just said, I'm done. I don't even have a feeling that I want that piece of steak anymore, or chicken, or
did you used to have steak and
everything.
Chicken and stuff?
My family, we grew up in a household where my dad literally thought it was funny to bring home all sorts of things and make us eat it. And he found enjoyment out of making us try different things. And I grew up with that philosophy of, you're going to try it. If you don't like it, then that's, a different story. But you're going to try what we're giving you. And there was no option. It's not like, my kids now, they have an option. So what would you like for dinner? Do you want this? And, two of my kids don't want meat at all. But it was because of this foundation and everything that I learned that it was like a light switch, and it went off, and it's been off since. And
Wow.
I just have it wasn't a medical reason. It wasn't a religious reason. It just was, I'm done.
So that connection for you came from dogs, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah, it is. I mean, just the most precious creatures came off this plane.
Yeah.
And, they're so scared and they're so hurt and they've been I'm going to cry now. They've been tortured. They've been like, everything that you can imagine has happened to them.
Yeah.
And then, you're trying to rehabilitate them. You're trying to teach them and nurture them. And you're trying to find them homes and sitting in this like in this center where we had all the pups and everything. And, it was life-changing.
I don't think people understand the gravity of how bad it is.
Yeah.
Like until you physically see, I'm going to cry now too, until you physically see what happens to them, you actually have no idea.
Yeah.
And so it's really
It's
tough.
like out of sight, out of mind, which is fine. Everybody's entitled to their own opinions and what they want with their lives. But I think for me, I'm happy about that awareness, and I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything.
So you don't have moments where you miss eating meat?
I mean, there are times where something comes on the table, it smells so good. And then, like, let's say if it's a piece of fish. So in my head, all that happens after that, no matter how appetizing it might look, I see this fish face going, I know it sounds really bad.
That's true.
But I just see
you have that connection.
Yeah.
So your why is stronger than your appetite. I think.
Yeah. So then it doesn't matter what it is, or if it could be the greatest delicacy in the world.
Yeah.
But I just don't have that feeling anymore that I'll just taste it.
Yeah.
No, so it doesn't happen at all.
Yeah. Why do you think we still live in a society that honestly believes that you need to have meat for protein? Because if you say you're a vegetarian or a vegan, the first question I get asked by everyone is, "Oh, where do you get your protein from?"
Well, see, I'm a bad vegetarian. That question is real for me. For the longest time,
Are you a lazy vegetarian?
I'll just eat pasta every day. What's a big deal? I'll just have a sandwich, but in the sandwich is full of lots of things that I shouldn't have, or certain food that you're like, oh, but it's vegetarian, it's diet food, but it's not. It doesn't work like that. You have to, after a certain point, you really have to pay attention to your body, how it's responding, what are the things that your body needs. So I get like a blood test done to make sure my levels are all correct. If I need to adjust something, then I pay attention to it. So there have been times where I've felt so lethargic, and why was I feeling this way? Or why was I not feeling well? It was because I wasn't being a good vegetarian. I wasn't taking in all those proteins. And sometimes it gets difficult, but I think once you get a handle on it, then you're fine. India is a perfect place because you can eat dal all day.
Yeah. So as a bad vegetarian, what would your daily food intake be like? So what do you have like breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
So like right now, right before I got here, I had a vegan salad.
Okay.
And my cook, the chef that's there, he grilled a bunch of vegetables, plus lettuce, plus beans, plus a bunch of different things, and then makes, a dressing, and
amazing.
But like gives me a bowl like this.
Amazing.
So that I don't feel hungry.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll feel hungry like 90 minutes from now, but I don't feel hungry now.
Yeah.
So it is satisfying. It just depends, like if you're a flavor person.
Right.
Or if you're, like my husband has a philosophy that I just eat to live, but I want to live to eat.
Yeah.
I'm the opposite. I want flavor. I want to like see presentation. I want to enjoy what I'm eating, even if it could only be this much.
Yeah.
But I want to enjoy it.
Yeah. That's hilarious. I mean, so Daniel's not a vegetarian.
No, he's not.
Okay. All right.
No.
So how does that work at home?
I mean, I have my own meal, and
okay, so you just have your...
he's very like sensitive during certain times not to order like a whole fish in front of me.
Right.
It still has a head and eyeballs on it.
Fair.
I'm like, the least you could do is like kind of clean it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And then he looks at me like if the waiter didn't, debone and do all that stuff.
Yeah.
He'll look at me like, I'm sorry. But I mean, he is sensitive in certain ways. And since I became vegetarian, I think he is also adapted to eating vegetarian meals, and he's completely fine with it. He's not, the type that says, no, I need my chicken and vegetables, and that's it.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So, Sunny, do you think that being a vegetarian, being someone that is quite aware of the issues in relation to animal rights, do you think you would ever, in your journey, become a vegan as your next step?
Yeah, I probably will end up there.
Well, you've already taken the creamer out of your coffee, so
yeah,
that's half, 50% done.
Yeah, so I don't do that. There's a couple of things left. I would just say maybe one.
Such as?
Cheese.
Cheese? I was just about to guess. Cheese.
Yeah.
What type of cheese?
I think if I found like the right consistency and company with vegan cheeses, I would switch in a second.
Yeah.
So if there's anybody out there, send me cheese, please.
What's the cheese?
Could just be anything.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
I'm going to send you some cheese later.
Yeah, please. Even in my meals, I'm still fine with eating like vegetables and tofu and, like Indian food, rice, dal, all that kind of stuff. That's completely fine for me. And I've cut back recently over the last, I'd say, couple of months, where I've literally cut out so much cheese. And my brain and my body get angry because it's addicted.
It is addictive though.
It is addictive.
Actually addictive.
Yeah, it is completely.
Yeah.
And I find myself heading to the fridge to get my fix.
Okay, so we're gonna send you some cheeses.
Yeah, please.
For sure.
I have no issues with switching as long as the taste is similar.
Yeah.
That I would. That's the last thing that's left because I've taken the creamer out. I don't drink milk. I don't have cereal. Can't have nuts.
Yeah.
So that's why I said I'm a bad vegetarian. So I can't even have all the things that most vegan people eat, which is your cashew curries and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So a lot of things also get cut out because I can't have any of those.
I think it is that those tastes and those textures that we love, and it's not that it's physically from an animal, it's that we love that taste. And if we can replace that taste, then who cares what, as long as it's healthy and tasty, that's really
even
all
if
that
it's
matters.
Unhealthy and it still tastes good.
You'll be
fine.
there.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Like Beyond Meat is best.
I love it.
India, please get it together. Bring it back.
Yeah, actually, can I just publicly say I'm actually going to share this with Beyond Meat because I would love Beyond Meat to come back to India. I don't know what their distribution problems are, but I live for that stuff.
I know.
And I'm dying without it here.
I know.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And every time I step out of India, the first thing I'm looking for is a vegan burger.
Impossible Meat and Beyond Meat, the moment I leave here, it's in Australia, UK, everywhere. Yeah. It's like the
Dubai,
number one thing that I'll do.
It's even closer.
Yes.
It's just a 2-hour flight away for a hamburger.
Yeah. Okay, let's go. So, Sunny, you were saying before that with your exposure to the dog meat trade in Yulin, that is what helped you to make that connection and that switch to become a vegetarian and give up eating meat. Do you think that for the general public, for people, they're just missing that opportunity to make that connection, to understand where their food comes from and that their food is coming from these innocent beings that are just like those dogs?
I think that you have to be, your mind and your heart have to be open to receive that information, because even before I switched over, I knew how, where meat came from, how it was done. I saw a couple of things, but it didn't register. Maybe just in that moment, my heart was open to receive this information,
Right.
and it was a switch. So there's some people out there where they're like, I don't care where it comes from. I like it, or they could be working on a farm. Or maybe they, down the street. I mean, you literally can buy a live chicken and they'll butcher it in front of you.
Yeah.
So, and they're fine with it. But for, let's say, you and I, that would be horrific.
Yeah.
You'd be crying.
Yeah.
You'd like, just let me pay for the chicken so you don't kill it.
Exactly.
Just let me buy the whole truck and let me save them. But that would be like our sensitivity. But other people just don't have that sensitivity, and maybe they're not ready for it, or they don't want it because it's just a way of life. It really just depends also, like, where you're from, your family upbringing, your exposure to the world, your exposure to information. So I think it all plays a big role.
I think what you said, exposure to information, is a big one, because like, you come from a meat-eating family and I do as well, yet over the course of our lives, we've critically thought, we've been exposed to information, and we've made a decision, right? So I think that's right. I think it's just being exposed to different ideas and being open to having your thinking challenged. And I think for me, I'm constantly open to having my thinking challenged. I never think I'm right on anything. And I'm like, please challenge me. Meat eaters, challenge me and show me, if I'm wrong. And so, I think it's a constant evolution of growth. And unless you have that mindset as a person, how do you become a better version of yourself if you're just going to stay like, this is what it is?
Yeah.
It's
tough. I think that it's something that maybe people don't think about, and that's okay. Like, maybe at one point they will think about it, because there's so much more information that comes out all the time. I mean, every single docu that's out there, where we talk about food and microbiomes, and you talk about where people live, their style of living, it all comes down to, most of them are vegetarian. Most of them are, working really hard to make their food. But let's say even 90% of the people that I've seen, they are not meat eaters. So then what? I mean, at some point we have to acknowledge, scientific data with our bodies and how they are. But that switch, when you watch, like, any of these documentaries, trying to switch over a century of information drilling into you that you had to drink cow's milk, and you have to like, it's the thing, you have to go to McDonald's and have a chicken hamburger, or you have to be that steak and potato type of guy, to be a man.
You're not a man unless you eat meat,
right? Which is not the case. There's like so many amazing famous athletes who are vegan, and they're just as strong, and they're winning medals, and their performance doesn't lack anything because they didn't have a glass of milk, or eat that big juicy steak.
Exactly. So many of the Olympic athletes were actually on a vegan diet. One of Germany's strongest men is vegan. It's such a misconception that equals masculinity. And in fact, I get a lot of comments on my podcast when I speak with vegan men, calling them wimpy, calling them gay. And I'm like, where does this is such primitive thinking. It's really bizarre. I want to tell you about this crazy date that I went on last week, a blind date. Okay, so I never say yes to blind dates, but I did. I'm like, Jello, let's do it. Anyway, so on the date, the guy is telling me how much of an animal lover he is, and my brain goes, okay. I was like, so are you a vegetarian or vegan? And he's like, oh, no. I'm like thinking, but can you call yourself an animal lover if you also eat them? I can't reconcile that moral inconsistency in my head, you know? It's like so many people in their brains go, these animals are okay for eating, and it's almost like they're classed with no moral rights, but these animals are classed as pets, and so we give them love, you know? And I just find that so bizarre.
Yeah, I guess my husband would fall in that category because he does love animals. but he's also not vegetarian. I
so
think like, yeah, so there's like a mental block, you know, and in our heads we have to, I think if you're going to go on a blind date with someone who's not vegetarian,
never again, firstly.
Yeah, like that's your before you show up. Are you vegetarian, vegan, or are you a meat eater?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think maybe it's just a matter of like, because I think most people are genuinely good people, right? It's not like people are dickheads. I think it's just that they haven't truly made that connection. Like if, for example, you pick most people up and put them in a slaughterhouse and they physically see what's happening, I just find it really hard to believe that most of the people will walk out of there and be okay with it. Like I think most people will be like, oh fuck, okay, I really cannot be a part of this. It is, as you said, hard to let go of something that is so indoctrinated as being normal over like such a long period of time. It's like rewiring your brain literally and going against the grain.
And society.
Yeah, and society.
And psychological brainwashing.
Yeah, because you're the weird one when you go out for dinner or something and you're like, oh no, I'm not going to have that or can't have that.
You know, so I have the opposite happen where I don't have someone who comes to me and go, oh, you're vegetarian.
Yeah.
They do, oh, you're vegetarian. That's amazing. So I don't know, like I don't feel that negative vibe from somebody. I get the opposite vibe.
Yeah.
Which is, oh wow, that's amazing. How long have you been vegetarian?
Yeah.
But I'm not forcing my views on anybody.
Yeah. I think that's the key thing.
Yeah, you know, of how I feel about it.
Yeah.
So it's not something that I'm going to say at the dinner table and say, well, this is the reason why I'm vegetarian. You should just Google it right now.
Yeah.
You know, and see what they do. That's me imposing and enforcing my views. If they really want to know why, then of course I'll tell them in detail of, you know, why.
I think it turns people off when you try and I think force any ideology onto someone. It turns people off, right? I'm the last one to mention that I'm a vegan to anyone, which is ironic since I have a vegan podcast. But it's more
you
like...
You should be proud.
I am proud of it, but it's more that when I've been vegan so long now, that when I'm in social contexts, I never like to bring it up unless someone asks me. Because, you know, people get very defensive very quickly, especially around veganism. So for me, I just keep it to myself unless it's brought up, because it is a very touchy subject for so many people. And usually people are pretty inquisitive about, oh, why are you vegan? And, you know, all this sort of stuff. But I have come across some people that get a little defensive about it, a little OTT. Maybe they feel
guilty
or something. Yeah, because I've not said anything and then they react in like a crazy way. So I'm curious where that behavior comes from. But yeah,
I find it really interesting in today's society that if someone has an opinion and you receive that opinion without judging them, that's fine. But if I have an opinion, you have a problem with it and then put me down for it.
Yeah.
But we live in this society now where everybody needs to feel inclusive. But what about my opinion? It's not in that inclusive circle.
Yeah.
I find it so crazy that this happens.
My opinion matters, yours doesn't.
Yeah.
Mine is correct, yours is wrong.
And if I feel that yours is wrong, I don't want to be friends with you.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I don't understand this, and I feel like this is like, I've had a lot of overly PC friends in the past who I just don't gel with because I'm not cut from that cloth. It's like, people can have different opinions and that is okay. Like, it's all right if we have different ideologies in the world, we have different political views, we have different like vegan, non-vegan, whatever, like we can still be the best friends. But the moment you start looking at the world through a singular lens that everyone has to think this way, be this way, I think that's where things get really dicey. Right. And I can't can't deal with it.
It's like a struggle.
Yeah.
Amongst everybody, I think.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
Trying to figure themselves out. You're like, no, but I've had myself figured out. I know what I like. I know that I don't want to eat meat. I know that I don't want this. And I know that you know, I want to live my life a certain way. But, you know, oh, you're right and I'm wrong.
Yeah. It's a very dangerous way to look at the world, I think.
Yeah.
So we were talking before about the dogs that we had saved when we were doing our food giveaway, who were adorable. I was reading online that there's over 60 million homeless dogs in India, like stray dogs that don't have homes. And it's so interesting because I have a rescue dog at home who is now adopted by me, and I love her. She's my life, Cookie Monster. And anyone that meets Cookie Monster, the first thing they ask me is, oh, what breed is this dog? And I'm like, who gives a fuck what breed this dog is? She's beautiful. Her name is Cookie Monster and she's from the street. Next question. And but the face they make when I say she's not a breed. And I find that there's this like crazy stigma in India, especially around this like glorification of breeds. And somehow Indies are like, whatever, just leave them on the streets and, you know.
Yeah. Well, and on this side of the world, there's an obsession with brands. Yes. And there's an obsession with where does this quality fall on the ladder? And yeah, there's, you know, all these street dogs that definitely probably need to be spayed and neutered. Yeah. You know, and there probably should be some campaign where we can stop this cycle where, you know, they might be happy dogs, but they don't always get the best treatment, and they're not getting medical care, or they're not getting proper food. And, you know, we see a lot of animals suffering out there because there's no control, and the society or the government or, you know, the local city has to say, let's get this under control and let's get these dogs either in a home or, you know, I remember there was one campaign here where there was a truck that would spay and neuter some of these animals.
Oh wow, like a mobile
Yeah,
thing.
It was like I think it was like a long time ago.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know what came of it, but I do like vaguely remember there was something like this happening.
Yeah. And
I think it's really important. You know, when you pick up a dog from a shelter, part of adopting that dog is that dog is spayed or neutered so that this cycle ends, so that we don't have shelters full of dogs either abandoned or abused or, you know, left on the street and, you know, not taken care of. But as you know, your local government definitely needs to help with that. You can't be done alone. It's like it can't be one person who does it.
Yeah. I'm actually very curious about that because it is such a serious issue. And, you know, whenever there's been like big events that are happening in India, the way the government deals with getting rid of the dogs is beyond disgusting. And that's something that I'm personally...
Like they get rid of the dog.
They physically get rid of the dogs. Yeah. Chuck them in like bags and bury them. Like it was insane what happened in Delhi recently. So what do you think it's going to take for the general public to be more open to adopting indie dogs into their homes in the same way that they're so excited to get breed dogs?
I have no idea, because you're talking about a philosophy of life, like the way that they're socially brought up, even if it's not so well-to-do family or a well-to-do family. The idea of having a dog is to have one that is pure of breed, you know, like it's not mixed with another dog. And I think that's very, very difficult. It's very difficult.
That's true, because something you said about this being a very brand obsessed place, I think that is the undercurrent of that whole thing. You know, I noticed that like me being Aussie, I don't care like what, you know, brands my stuff is, right? Yeah. So when I love that secondhand vintage stores are opening up here in Bombay now. It's becoming more popular. Anyway, so when I've shopped at like vintage stores and stuff. Like most of my wardrobe is from vintage stores. And someone I know was like, ew, you buy like secondhand clothes. I'm like, no, well, they're not dirty. Like it's sustainable because you're literally not always buying new stuff. Like it's great, you know, and plus it's fun. You never know what you're going to find. But this weird stigma around that it has to be a brand, it has to be like this and that. And if it doesn't fit into that particular narrative, that particular profile, it's like looked down upon as being less. You know, if you're darker, it's less. If you're not wearing a brand, it's less. It's like these weird things we've created. It's like there was this book actually that my friend showed me, an Indian book that they use in school or whatever, where it shows you what a beautiful woman is and what an ugly woman is.
Oh my God.
And it said,
I'm going to ask my kids today, is there a book like this at school?
Dude,
because I'll be protesting outside.
So the ugly woman was a dark woman wearing Indian wear and just had like a bigger nose or something, okay? But she's dark. And the beautiful woman was light skin and like looking generically perfect. And it's weird because from a young age, we indoctrinate these ideas. This is good, this is bad, this is, you know, beautiful, this is ugly. And then we grow up thinking these things, you know?
Yeah, well, we're conditioned to think those things.
Yeah.
But I think it's, you know, also something that we have to strive at home to change those views of how we raise our children. But that's also very, very difficult. You have to have a home that's open-minded to these things so that you can change, you know, those views of all those things you just mentioned. So it's very, very difficult.
So something I was thinking about before when we were talking about vegetarianism and veganism. So I often see that there are a lot of celebrities that are either vegetarian or vegan, but they very rarely talk about it publicly. And I was wondering, why do you think that's the case?
I don't know, maybe they're just saying they're vegetarian, but they're not.
You know what?
Every time they say it out loud, it's like lying.
Yeah. I have seen certain celebs who I know publicly say they're vegetarian, but then I'll see them on an ad for KFC. I'm like, well, I mean, come on.
They have no idea what they do to those birds at KFC.
Dude.
It's horrible.
It's beyond, yeah. And one of my friends, he does these investigations and he went to one of these facilities where they process these chickens, and I just wish I could pick up everybody and put them into one of these facilities and then say, okay, if you're okay with this, go for it. But it's, as you said, out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Cares.
For sure. I think like if you're dealing, maybe they just have a view that it's not so important to talk about, you know. I have no idea. Yeah. I don't have a problem talking about it.
Yeah.
You can talk to me anytime.
Yeah, I love that you don't have a problem because, see, the thing is, Sunny, I feel people with a strong public status and so many people look up to you, follow you, there's some level of onus to be as educated as possible and constantly try and evolve yourself to educate the public about things that matter and that are important as well. Right. So I think it's amazing that you are taking a public.
I also think it comes with like age. If you see like maybe the younger generation, for them, they're trying to find their own footing. They're trying to find their path. So thinking about, you know, any of these views is on the back half of their thinking because they're like, all right, how am I just going to get my next job? You know, like, you know, so it's not like they don't see themselves as how the world sees them, you know, and I think that will just come with time.
But then that makes me also curious about, like, if we teach kids to be more thoughtful from a younger age, it may naturally progress into them choosing to be more thoughtful when they're younger.
You have to hope. I mean, I have 3 kids with 3 completely different viewpoints of life and, you know, what they want to do. One's like, no, I eat meat.
Really?
I'm a meat eater. And I've never said, like, you need... this is it, like you're gonna eat this. That's his view. Then I have my other son who's like, no, I'm vegetarian. No, I can't. Like a fish showed up on the table at dinner one time and he was bawling his eyes out.
Wow.
He was hysterically crying, and Daniel had to pick him up, take him out of the restaurant for a second and have a conversation with him about, you know, personal choices and how we're all entitled to have our own choices and be able to, you know, have them, but not have somebody else judge them for it, you know. And then my daughter's like in between. Sometimes she's vegetarian, sometimes she's not, you know. So
but you never have imposed anything on your children that you have to be vegetarian or you have to.
They know that I don't eat meat. They know that I feel a certain way about animals and eating meat. I haven't told them in detail of why. They're too young. They're 6 and 9. But they're very, very much aware that if you're eating meat, it means that that animal died. You know, and that's something that they resonate with and connect with. Especially one of my sons. Like, he's just puts this face and he's like mortified that an animal has died and it's now sitting in front of him.
Wow.
So he's extremely sensitive. So if you just take my household, every child has their own way of processing. Like, it doesn't matter if one of my sons, you know, has seen something crazy. Like, nope, I like chicken, I'm gonna eat it.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, fine. Like, you know, you're entitled to make your own choices. I grew up in a household where my dad said, you're going to try everything and then you decide what you want later on in life.
I think for me, it would be the opposite. Like, if I have kids, it would be like your dad, but on the opposite end of the spectrum, in that I would raise my kids vegan. And then when they get old enough to make a decision, then I'll be like, whatever you want. If you want to eat meat, it's fine. I think I'd probably go down that road. But it's hard to say until you're like in the situation, because
it'll also be your household. Like,
and it'll be the kids' personalities as well.
If they're like completely different. Every child is so different. Their sensitivities are different. So you might think like, okay, if I drill it in them, that this, you know, their life should be a certain way. They're going to make their own decisions no matter what. And they're going to feel differently about different situations, you know, and we have to accept them for who they are and just hope that we're raising good human beings. And that's all it comes down to.
So you have adopted some beautiful children. And I wanted to ask what your views were on the same, because I was talking to one of my friends and telling them how I want to adopt one day as well. I don't wish to have biological children. I'd ideally like to adopt. And the amount of people that have said to me, Amy, why are you not having children? Like, you have to continue your bloodline. I'm like, why? Why are we so up ourselves that we care about our bloodline so much? Like, I love the idea of adopting, and I think it's such a beautiful thing. And why do you think there is such a stigma around you have to have your own children?
I mean, both my boys are my kids. They're my DNA and Daniel's DNA. And Nisha's not, but we don't see them any different. They're all the same. You know, of course, you know, Nisha knows she's adopted. We definitely don't look alike in any way. She might act like her daddy or me or her brothers, but that's, you know, it's not biological. So that's just all conditioning of, you know, being, you know, with your family. But I don't know why people would think that way. I think adopting takes a very special type of family, or your needs, why you want to adopt, your openness to it. And I had a friend who also went through surrogacy, and she messaged me and she's like, I haven't told anybody else, but you know, our second child we're having through surrogacy because I had a horrible time during my first pregnancy. I can't do it again. And she's like, well, what does it feel like? Like, am I going to feel differently about my child? And I said, no, absolutely not. The second that you hold your baby, you're going to think it's your baby. It doesn't matter. It's not going to matter to you whether you had her in your womb or it grew in someone else's oven. It doesn't matter. And I go, I promise you'll be fine. And then after she had her baby, she's like, yeah, you were right. And I go, because your heart's open to this child.
Yeah.
Like the second that I saw Nisha, I knew that that was my baby.
Yeah.
Like
really?
in my head, this was my baby.
So your brain doesn't differentiate
No,
the
not at
love.
all.
Like the love is just love for your children.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, it has its challenges. I wouldn't say that there are no challenges. There's definitely challenges. And as she's getting older, we're going to start seeing more of those challenges emotionally. She has everything that she could possibly want or have in the world. Like literally everything is at her fingertips. And she's extremely bright and she's super smart, doing so well in school. She plays Beethoven on the piano. Like she's so amazing. But she is going to have psychological issues where we're going to have to address, because no matter how much love you give a child, you're going to have to address issues of abandonment, and you're going to have to address issues of, but why? But why did they not want me? That hasn't come yet, but I know that it's going to. And we have to make sure that we address it in the most sensitive and open way, you know, based on what she says, not me feeding her information.
Yeah.
Because I think like sometimes as parents, we might feed our children too much information, but they're not mentally, psychologically ready for that information.
Sure.
So I know like that will come, but literally she's like so bright, so smart, wins awards. She's an artist. She plays piano. She's just great in school. She's like a super brainiac.
Wow.
She's that little girl that we all hated in class because they were so smart.
That's so annoying.
And like I know, and I was like, why does mine? But I didn't do well at all. No. I didn't have parents that nurtured my education at all.
I was the loser at school.
I wasn't a loser at school. I was a C student, and she's like a straight A student. Wow. Like everything she does is like she's extremely intelligent.
Wow. Do you think having kids has like completely enriched your life?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1000%.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Some people are like, oh, you're gonna have kids. It's like, you know, like marriage and children are like jail.
Yeah.
But I think if you find the right partner and you want to have children, then you know it's the best. It's literally the best.
I find that thinking really bizarre when people say that marriage is like a jail.
Yeah.
It's like, well, then why are you going there? Like if you see it that way.
Because it's society pressures, maybe.
Yeah. But it's like, for me, it's like if I'm marrying someone, it should be such a joy and they should be my best friend and I should be so excited about it, you know, and I want to spend time with them.
Yeah.
So tell me, Sunny, about Starstruck Cosmetics. You have an amazing cosmetics line and it is completely cruelty-free.
Yes.
So can you please explain why does a makeup brand need to be cruelty-free and what does that even mean?
Well, just in the sentence, cruelty-free, is why people should use cruelty-free makeup. You know, there's certain brands out there that do a lot of different things to create that most perfect formula. But I am extremely proud that here in India, there are these great manufacturers that manufacture products that are cruelty-free, that are vegan, that don't hurt any animal to land up on your face, you know? So that I'm very, very happy and proud of. And that was something that from day one was something that it wasn't an option. You know, so that was something that Daniel and I talked about. We said our makeup has to be vegan or vegetarian, and we will find those manufacturers who will create a formula that's amazing and can compete with, you know, any other brand.
And you've proven that because like your products are amazing and you know I just find it really shocking that in this day and age we still have brands that are doing horrific things to, you know, dogs and rabbits and monkeys and stuff.
Yeah, but there's countries that have rules that like in China,
I think,
your makeup has to be tested on an animal before it goes on any of their citizens' faces, before it can be sold, before it lands up at a store and on a shelf for you to buy. those are the mandatory components for you to be able to sell in that country. You know, so certain places require you to do that. For them, in their minds, that's them protecting, I don't know, their citizens, or I have no idea.
It's just stupid.
Yeah, it is. It's not necessary in today's day and age.
It's absolutely not necessary. And I think as a brand, it's crucial then to make that very executive decision that, you know what, if we're saying we're cruelty-free, then we're just not going to sell in China. It's that like if China has those rules, then we're just not going to support it. You know?
But that's very difficult for some brands because you're opening up $1 billion market. Or not. So it just depends. Maybe they'll change their laws and regulations as time passes. Because they do, like when I've done my research in China, they do have many manufacturers and companies who do sell vegan products there. Their makeup it's like flawless. It's amazing. So that facility is there.
So if it's manufactured in China, you're saying then
but I might still have to go through animal testing is what I mean, to be sold there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But then I wonder how they're able to physically label a product as vegan if it has gone through animal testing at some point. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So we had options to purchase the formulas from China and bring them back here. But we stuck to the idea of let's find manufacturers here in India that, create the same formulas.
So Sunny, you are somebody that lives between India and between the Western world, and you completely own women's empowerment. Do you find that this is something that is challenged in India, especially with very traditional views around women?
I don't always like to be the one that likes to preach that you should be a certain way. I believe that all these things you can do by your actions and how you speak about certain issues. So like, you can only, I feel like you can only change like one person's opinion at a time. And that's what I think in my mind. Like if I go to an event and I'm able to change their opinion about certain views, then, then great. Then we've made one step closer to more people feeling empowered.
Have you ever experienced sexism on set ever?
So I'm surrounded by a lot of people, so I don't really see it so often. I mean, there have been moments where someone's asking for something that is above and beyond maybe what was discussed. When I talk about like sexuality or clothes or certain expressions or certain things that doesn't seem so valid. But you have to just take it situation by situation and analyze what's best for you. But for the most part, I think I'm okay.
Yeah. I think I've noticed for me that I've been given like a lot of privilege. And I mean this in the sense that like when I'm around my best friend, her name is Rena, she has fairly dark skin, okay? And I've noticed here when, let's say for example, we've gone to the laundromat, okay, physically gone to drop some stuff off or to like pick something up, they will hand the laundry, even though they know I'm the customer, they will hand the laundry to Rena with an assumption that she's my maid or something. And it's happened on so many occasions. And I'm like, I just find it so fascinating. It's not sexism, of course, but it's like, I've seen so many weird instances of isms at play, whether it's racism or sexism or, anything like that.
I think that this goes on in every society.
Yeah.
And it's really just about maybe your life experience and who you are and how you handle each situation. Because the situation can go one way or another and you don't want it to go into a sour way.
Yeah.
So maybe in that moment we need to realize how to speak so that maybe we can educate somebody or see our view or my view through my lens and not just through their own.
Yeah.
So I think that just comes with like life experience.
Absolutely. I just did a podcast with my friend Zara Khan, And do you know her? She's a singer.
Yeah, I've met her.
So Zara's amazing, and she's been vegan now for 2 years, and it's been great because we've just been following each other's journeys, and it's really beautiful. Anyway, so we recently just released her podcast, okay? And she was publicly talking. I mean, she's Islamic, and she's very publicly against sacrificing of goats and encourages kindness and veganism. And so on her latest podcast, she was talking about Eid and the sacrificing of goats. And someone made this comment. They were like, oh, you know, how can you have an opinion when she dances, she sings, you know, she's on stage, so she doesn't have the right to have an opinion? And I find that thought process so messed up.
Yeah.
Like, why? How does that have any correlation? Like, why does that matter?
I have no idea. It doesn't. It's absolutely ridiculous in every way, of course. But, you know, you're looking at, again, we're looking at someone's social upbringing and how their home life was. So when they maybe think of a religion, they're thinking of it as all-inclusive.
Yeah.
And not breaking it up into different points.
Yeah.
You know, so especially when in a religion, that is one of their high holidays. We have to respect their high holiday. But what they've done is encompassed it with everything of what their life philosophies are. So even if it sounds not so great from this side, but for them, the whole philosophy of life is all inclusive, you know? Yeah. So yeah, it is ridiculous to hear. Because she's not hurting anybody. She's actually bringing joy to people.
Yeah.
You know, an animal is not dying for what, you know, she wants to do.
Yeah.
But, you know, it sucks.
And I think because people feel, again, how we were talking about people feeling defensive, so then they say kind of crazy things when they feel their views have been attacked, maybe, even if they haven't been attacked, but they feel attacked because they might feel bad or guilty for some reason, you know. And I was reflecting on this the other day that I feel like, because someone asked me about personal choice, and I'm all for people making their own decisions with anything. But for me, things get dicey when a personal choice impacts someone else, because then it's not a personal choice anymore. So like when I say, for example, that it's my personal choice to eat meat, I'm like, well, it's not my personal choice, because my choice is not just impacting me personally, it's impacting a third party that didn't agree to that, right?
But that's all choices, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, if there's a victim of
our choices affect more than one person.
Yeah, but I mean, if there's a victim, if someone's dying for our choice, then I mean, that's when there should be some level of like moral questioning that, you know, is this the right thing to do or not? So I find that a fascinating thought process for me.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't feel the same. I feel like if I'm making a choice for myself, that choice is just for myself. And I don't want to judge somebody else based on their choices. Because when you stop eating meat or you become vegan, that's an extremely personal choice of your own.
Yeah.
And the other person has to be receptive of those opinions. It's still an opinion. Your opinion is that I don't want to hurt an animal, and I don't believe in animals being hurt for my own personal satisfaction. But do I judge my husband on it? No, because that's his personal choice, you know, and he's entitled to that personal choice. And I can't say that he's an immoral person, because this is how he grew up. This is what he believes in. This is what he's okay with. And, you know, so I think that there's like one side of thinking and then there's another side of thinking, because I know for a fact I will never go back to eating meat ever again. And after the things I've seen, I won't head down that journey. I just know myself. You know, it doesn't matter how appetizing something might look. You know, or I know what that tastes like. Am I going to force it on my children? Probably not. But if they want to, then they should go ahead and do it, you know, and they have to choose for themselves on like their own moral compass. What does their moral compass mean to them? You know, what are the scales? Like, how far this way does it go and how far does it go to the left, you know?
I think for me, it's like where people, when people own it, that for me is the big thing, right? Like, for example, one of my very good friends, he's a deer hunter. And but
my heart.
But the thing is, right, is that he owns it in the sense that he knows what he's doing. He's completely aware of the fact that he's taking, I might not agree with it, like I don't agree with it at all, but I can at least respect that he's owning it. Whereas, you know, you take someone who's like picking up a piece of meat from, you know, the shelf, and they're like, oh, I can never see an animal cruelty video, but then they have that disconnect. So I'm like, I think at least
but most people can't see an animal cruelty.
Most people can't.
You can't. It's too difficult.
Yeah, that's what I mean, is that they'll still be a part of the system, but they don't want to know about the system. And this is what perplexes me, is it's like, if there's victims involved, then we should at least, like, I don't know, be open to learning and be open and then make a decision, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's some people who have seen that and they just don't care.
And they don't care. Yeah.
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 So is that owning it or not owning it?
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's owning it. Like, if you have seen it and if you know what it is and you're okay with it, then that's better than most people that literally are just ostrich, you know, head in the sand and want to have no idea about what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, to me.
Or ostriches.
Yeah.
They really do.
You can take any animal. Humans have literally fucked them in like every way possible.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, shocking.
It's sad.
Well, thank you so much, Sunny, for joining me today on Kindness with Amy. It's been amazing to chat with you.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you. And all the best on your journey, and Starstruck, wishing you all the best with your business.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.